Let's talk about the biggest thing that's going to separate the type of role-playing games that you can find. The concept of Kayfabe. It's a wrestling term, and basically it means selling the act. Wrestlers go out on stage, but they're supposed to always be in character. The Undertaker, for example, would wrestle on a broken leg because his character wasn't supposed to feel pain. If he took time to rehabilitate, he wouldn't be The Undertaker, he would just be Mark Calloway, the guy who plays The Undertaker. Which I'm sure is a great guy, but he's not The Undertaker, and the whole point is that he's The Undertaker, he's the character. Now, the reason why professional wrestlers are such a good example of staying in character is because they really did go to extreme lengths. I mean, you cannot find actors who went further to be their characters than professional wrestlers. Naturally, as role players, we don't have to go that far. I mean, if you're sick or you've got family obligations, you can cancel the game. You don't have to be your character every single week if you can't make it. But here's the big thing about kayfabe. It only works if everybody is in kayfabe. So if a wrestler goes out there and he decides, you know what, I don't like the script the way it is, I'm going to go a different direction, he kind of like breaks kayfabe and then he starts throwing real punches. Well, now the other guys can't stay in kayfabe because they're actually being attacked, and they're going to break character and they're going to fight back. This actually happens sometimes in pro wrestling. One fantastic example is Antonio the Great versus Antonio Inoki. The two go in and the great Antonio is supposed to lose. He's the heel for this act, he's in foreign land, but Antonio the Great gets other ideas. He doesn't want to lose, so he just doesn't sell the punches and doesn't really cooperate with Inoki during the match. Then finally he hits Inoki in the back of the head, and Inoki gets mad. Inoki turns around and he hits Antonio back, right in the face. Then again, and again! Inoki is mad now, he doesn't stop. Antonio the Great falls down and Inoki kicks him. Finally, they call the match, and Inoki has won by a real-life knockout. This was supposed to be a performance. What should have been a battle between two characters on a stage became a real-life fight. I think this may sound kind of familiar to some of you who have seen a fight in a role-playing game between players. It's all a world of make-believe. Shouldn't they be able to keep this in make-believe? Well, the secret to that is knowing the difference between kayfabe and reality, or being in character and not being in character. And to be honest, some people just cannot do it. They cannot take themselves out of their own heads. Those people you'll find usually are just going to play dungeon crawlers. I mean, it doesn't require any acting, they just focus on killing things, it's like a video game. But there are yet some players who will see that there's an advantage to occasionally dropping kayfabe when it's convenient. Like, for example, if you want to know out-of-character information about a monster that you're seeing. Like, oh, I know its weakness, but maybe my character doesn't, but that's okay, my character figures it out. Sherlock Holmes-style deduction is probably the most common form of dropping kayfabe you'll ever see. It's also the kind of character drop that most infuriates me, because it's like, oh, how did you know that my character was going to be out here trying to activate this portal? Well, it's elementary, my dear Watson. The hell it is. Good luck trying to get somebody to admit to this kind of intellectual sleight of hand. No, you don't understand. My character realized the shadows were off by 10 feet. And you can go on for days. You'll never find a beginning or end to that logical explanation. But if you think that you can play a character, or you'd like to try, and you can be honest, here's how you do it. Follow your heart. Be yourself. Yes, really, that's it. Alright, think about it. Why does a spider bite somebody? Is it thinking about its place in the world? Are you like its political enemy? No, the spider is scared. Even the smallest animals really kind of start first with fear reflexes and things like that. And humans are actually no different. Most of our quick decisions are done with emotions first, and logic much, much later. Knowing things can inform your feelings, like for example, you might be afraid of spiders because you know that they're venomous. But the important thing here is that you feel afraid of spiders, and hence you avoid spiders. Your fear is informing how you behave around spiders. And on the other side, if you think spiders are cool, then maybe you might approach them. You'd go the other way. So knowing how your character feels, and kind of approaching everything sort of emotion first, like respecting your own emotions, is how you stay in character. So one thing that you should do when you make a new character is think about a lot of your emotional resonance. Like, what is important to your character? What would make them emotional? For example, let's suppose that you say, I want everyone to think I'm an important wizard. Yes, I am the wizard, the wizardest wizard in the entire world. Well, that's a character who's feeling insecure, and everything he does is going to kind of revolve around that sucking insecurity. Like maybe he's gonna go on a great adventure and he's gonna save the day, but it's just to prove to everybody that he's the most wizardly wizard. But stick with that, and if you have a good GM, then the GM can hook you into all kinds of things that make logical sense for the character. For example, he can have an NPC say, "You're not even that great of a wizard. You won't even help us slay the dragon on the whatever mountain." And then you'll say, "How dare you? I am the most wizardly wizard. I'll kill that dragon tomorrow. You wait and see." And then, of course, you'll try to do it tomorrow, even though it's impossible because you said you would, and you have this terrible insecurity. It is a hole that must be filled. Right? And this can even go with sort of like more subtle emotions. Like suppose you play a depressed character who's seen a lot of their life go by, and at this point, they're adventuring because they're kind of self-sacrificial. They think, I missed my shot, but everybody else deserves theirs. Like this is a character that kind of likes people. So the land is in peril for some reason. I don't know, like a meteor's about to fall, and we got to do something about it. Well, I'll be that guy. I've got nothing else, and everybody deserves to live more than I do. I'm going to the top of the mountain, and I'm going to cast the charm of no meteor. It's a little more morose, but if you've got the skill, you kind of bury that moroseness and not bring it up a lot, and just be like, yeah, just want to see everybody else smile. And then a little tear rolls down your cheek. I wish I knew what it felt like to be like them. Anyway, one of my personal favorites is the stupid guy who just loves all his friends. Everybody seems to love that one. Of course, that one's often a little bit passive because it's like, I just want to be with my friends. I'll go where my friends are. You have to hope that someone else is going to be the leader. Villains are also pretty great. I hate whatever this thing is that we're supposed to be stopping. I'm so mad at it. And I hope you get the point, You find some emotions, you follow them, you kind of build your character around these feelings. Let them be your guide. Be yourself, follow your heart. It surprisingly requires very little expository logic, and you don't really have to spend any extra time on it. You just have to sell the character. That's what Kayfabe is. You're just selling the performance. You don't need to know his extended family or necessarily his favorite food unless it adds a fun quirk. Every factual detail you can list about a character's life is kinda gravy. The core is gonna be their feelings, their motives. As long as you know your motive and how to feel, you can stay in character. Now, there are some types of characters that don't do well with a group. They're not necessarily great for a role-playing game, but that's a separate issue. However, like I mentioned before, if not everybody is in Kayfabe, you won't be able to play a character. Because players not in Kayfabe will use logic that doesn't really make sense or follow any kind of emotions or motives, and they'll often try to force you to do things that are incongruent with your own motives and emotions. And once your character loses track of how they're supposed to feel in a situation, you have lost the ability to be in character. You can't keep up Kayfabe because you don't know what you're feeling, which means your audience doesn't know what you're feeling, which means that they're not buying the performance because you can't sell it. I've got an example in kind of a recent game. I was playing an everyman, like sort of a regular dude. He had telekinetic powers, but aside from that, he was a regular, if somewhat excitable, guy from the circus. Well, he was raised by clowns. Anyway, one of the other characters was an orc. And in this setting, orcs aren't really part of society. They're usually raiders and, cannibals and murderers and stuff like that. You see them as bandits more than as people, but the player is an orc. The orc is also the first in recorded regional history paladin of Azathoth, which is a horrible outer god that will destroy the entire universe as we know it if it ever wakes up. Now, you may see some red flags here, and this group, also not real good with the Kayfabe thing. Second session, the orc sprouts a tentacle for an arm, and so my character sees this and goes, oh my god, and he just goes, it's cool, dude. And I say, it's not cool, and everyone's just like, it's cool, dude, it's cool, don't worry about it, it's cool. I'm playing an everyman who is raised by clowns, like so many of us are. And absolutely nobody at the table is trying to reassure my character that this tentacle arm on the orc, who, for all I know, recently pillaged somebody yesterday. Maybe when I wasn't looking, I was with him yesterday, but he could have done it, in the bathroom. Look, he's got a tentacle for an arm, and he's waving it around menacingly. Why is nobody telling me that why is no one trying to soothe me? And so basically, I'm in Kayfabe, and I sell this tentacle. Like, oh my god, you have a tentacle. Wow, a tentacle. And then the other players are just no sale. Nothing. Nada. So I think, well, what do I do with this? Okay, well, I guess I have to go for help. Because everyone in the room is just saying, don't worry about it. And I can't, what are you, mind controlled? What is this? So I go to the church, and the church is like, oh, yes, that is concerning. Keep an eye on it for me. Long story short, the group kind of treated my behavior as disruptive, and ultimately, when it all shook out, more happened, but bottom line was I kind of got punished for it. But the fact is, I didn't know how to play a character whose feelings would work when confronted with that. When everybody is just, not selling it. And to me, the way that I like to play, why even have your character grow a tentacle arm if you don't want anyone to comment on it? I mean, is the sword arm not good enough? None of this matters. The tentacle gets a +1 to attack. I see. Yes, there it is. And so that's the thing. Kayfabe groups and non-kayfabe groups, they really don't get along very well. You're going to find that kayfabe players are actually more rare, and you'll have to move around a lot more to find players who are cool with staying in character all the time. It's much more common to find groups that don't really get into character. And the ones who are never in character, they view characters as being kind of disruptive because it slows them down. They're on their way to the dungeon. Why are you going to the church to report one of our player characters? We need to go to the dungeon. His +1 tentacle arm is going to be real great for chopping skeletons in half. They're kind of antithetical. I mean, like I say, if one person's not in kayfabe, nobody can be. And I know I'm not alone. For some of the guys that I play with who are good about being in character all the time, I hear about them being in other groups, and, they'll say similar stories. I tried to do something fun, I tried to play a feeling, and they stopped me. And I empathize. I know you didn't do anything wrong, brother. You and me, we're special. The world is wrong. You and me, every Sunday forever, for the rest of our lives. Roleplay! Forget football! Stop watching football! We're gonna roleplay! But hey, if you can do kayfabe, and you find yourself a good kayfabe group, it's a blast.